Oh no, guys, it's about to get so much worse. It's gonna get so much worse. So here we go. Bungie dropped a TWAB yesterday, and there was a lot of good stuff in it. You know, there's some good stuff in it. If you want a full TWAB breakdown, I don't tend to do those. There's a lot of people out there who will read through, give you the highlights, all that stuff. That's not what we're doing today. We're going to talk about what we're going to be looking at for the remainder of this season. So, here's a couple things. On top of the meta right now in both console and PC lobbies, some of the best weapons out there are Tarrabah, Ikelos SMG, and the Immortal, okay? Now, with this TWAB, we learned that two of those things are going to get heavily nerfed. We've got the Ikelos SMG, which is going to be getting a hit to its stability. Basically, they looked under the hood. It's kind of an interesting thing that went on there. The Ikelos SMG, if you remember, was Warmind. It was actually made by Vicarious Visions under the supervision of Bungie, but it wasn't made by Bungie themselves. So it's kind of interesting. They went in, they took another look at the coding for the Ikelos SMG, and they basically found that it has some custom tuning that made it unique, you know, in the backdrop of other SMGs in its family. It was basically getting a lot more stability, less recoil, as part of its sort of custom scope that it's got going on there. And so they were like, so they're fixing that, right? They're going to make it have a lot more recoil, make it much more in line with the other SMGs in that 750 subfamily. So Ikelos is getting nerfed. And then we've got the Tarrabah, okay? So the Tarrabah has always been just a heck of an SMG. And part of that is because, well, not a part of it, probably the biggest reason is because it has a 16 zoom value. So it's got an extra zoom. And what we've learned about zoom is that there's a lot of things that are sort of wrapped up in that. And that comes into the TWAB later, actually. But zoom, just having extra zoom, it gives you a lot of things. It gives you extra range before you experience damage drop-off. It gives you more aim assist at range. It gives you more stability. It affects accuracy cones. There's a lot of things that are wrapped up into that zoom value. So just having one extra zoom is like having 4 massive buffs to your gun. And so Tarrabah is they're going to be rolling that back and pulling that back a little bit, bringing that back to 15 zoom. And on top of that, they're also nerfing Ravenous Beast, so you don't get it charged up quite as quickly anymore. But you may be noticing an exclusion here, something that's going untouched, and that is the Immortal. So the Immortal SMG, which is, by the way, completely dominating PvP right now. You know, it's interesting that an adept weapon from Trials is on top because it's so freaking good, both in PvP and in PvE, that everybody and their mother went into Trials last week to try and get one. Week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, week and a half, something like that. Anyways, so we saw like a record-breaking numbers in Trials. Let's pull it up real quick. So that particular week, the Immortal SMG was responsible for 9.8 million, the adept version, kills, and the non-adept version 2.9 million. So you're looking at, you know, a little over 12 million, 12.6 or something million kills with with just this brand new SMG. And but here's the thing I want you to look at. Notice this. The difference between SMG kills overall and everything else. So SMGs especially, well, it's not, I can't say SMGs. I gotta say the outliers of SMGs, which now that Tarrabah and Ikelos are getting nerfed, what's that leave on the table? The Immortal. The Immortal is going to become so much more of a problem because this gap is only going to continue to widen. The Immortal SMG is so good, it makes people not want to run things like hand cannons. Makes people not want to run things like sidearms. You know, those other things that sort of occupy that same space. Auto rifles. So these things, when you have outliers that are so above the rest of the pack, it alienates entire weapon subfamilies. And we're only going to see that gap widen as the Immortal is going to be untouched. And you might be saying, hey, TV, they're talking about you know, nerfing that family of SMG next season. Do you know when next season launches? We got like 2 months to live in this Crucible environment. 2 months. Bungie is always very slow to throw the PvP folks a bone. That's a fact. That's not opinion. Very slow. So even though we're still not in a great spot in PvP, still a lot of issues out there that need to be resolved. On top of that, it's compounded by the fact that there's not new content, no new maps and all that stuff. We're getting some new modes later, But yeah, so this is no new content for us, and we got to live in a sandbox that is going to be dominated by one outlier. And it's going to be, you either have to adapt and put it on yourself, or you have to just understand that you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. Now, on the lower skill bracket lobbies, you might not experience the domination of the Immortal quite as hard, because if maybe you're like a 4 out of 10 on a skill scale, which is great. I envy you, because your lobbies are going to have a lot more variety in them, because those are the folks that probably didn't go in and farm for a God roll Adept Immortal. Fewer of them did, so your lobbies might be fine. You might not notice that. But I'm already seeing in my lobbies just Immortal spam for days. Like, everybody and their mother is using it. And it makes it so hard to use anything else. Anything else at all. So now that the direct competition to the Immortal has been nerfed, is getting nerfed, it's just going to be that much better. Now, here's another interesting thing. So if we were to go to Destiny Tracker and look at the PvP meta right now, outside of Trials, we got the comp playlist. Look what's on top. The Immortal. It's the Immortal. And it's by quite a large gap. Everything else, 2.1, 2.1, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.9. 5.6% usage rate. And then beyond that, it's not just usage. The gap gets wider when we're looking at actual kills that it's responsible for in that environment. 7.4%. Look at where it is on the graph, and everything else is just sort of just hovering around the similar percentages here. And then this is just so far above everything else. It's only going to get worse. Quick play. It's on top. So brace yourselves and buckle up, because the Immortal slipped by. I think my guess is that Bungie was just like, hey, we just gave this gun to everybody. We had record-breaking numbers in Trials. We can't give them their cake and take it away. We got to let them eat it too. So I'm assuming that's why the Immortal is slipping by for now, sort of the novelty of it. But I do think that it's not necessarily a good way to go about things, is just to let the novelty of it reign. And I know that some people are like, yo, it just came out. It's going to let it be the meta for a while. Hey, at least it's not this thing, or at least it's not that other thing that used to be meta. Let's just live in this meta for now. I totally am fine with the fact that Destiny has always been like this, where metas are shifting and you constantly are having a shakeup in the meta and in the sandbox because of it. But it's okay for something to be meta as long as it is not so dramatically better than everything else that it alienates the other things that make Destiny great, like creativity, build crafting, become legend, play your way. When those things take a backseat and they get sidelined because the meta is so good, that's when we experience some of the worst of what Destiny PvP has to offer. Think about the sticky grenade meta towards the end of Destiny 1. Think about the Thorn Last Word meta that went on for, I think it was like 6 months. And those things were so dominant that if you did not use those, you were a detriment to your team in PvP back in D1. So I'm okay with something being the meta. I'm okay with something being the best, as long as the gap between it and everything else is like this, not like this. And this is what we have right now, and this is what we are going to continue to have for months now before we get to the next season. Also, on top of that, when we get to the next season, the nerf that they outlined for us for these SMGs, these aggressive frame SMGs, is more about putting the burden on you to survive them. So they're saying we're going to adjust the resilience threshold by tuning the damage on these things, so that if you want to survive against them and lengthen their TTK up to 0.77 instead of 0.67, then you need to bring your resilience up. And I don't really like that. I think the burden should be on Bungie to make these guns a little bit more manageable in PvP, not necessarily on the player. So I don't like when the answer is, okay, now you need to change everything about your build and accommodate for this gun. Like, shouldn't the gun be adjusted, not everyone's builds? If we have to choose between tune the gun a little bit better and have everybody else tune their builds better, I think that it would be easier just to target the gun, right? So I've been saying this for a while now. I think what they ought to do is make the trade-off with aggressive frame SMGs that stability needs to matter more, so people aren't full sending on range. Because right now you can tank your stability and it doesn't matter. As long as you've got that range built into the gun, then you're okay. So I think that they basically need to make it so that stability has a much greater impact on the degree of recoil that you experience on these SMGs. So that would be my suggestion. But anyways, one interesting thing that they did bring up at the end of the TWAB, or towards the end of the TWAB, where are we at? Boom. Zoom. Remember how at the beginning of the video I told you that zoom has a lot of other things wrapped up into it, like damage drop-off, aim assist, stability. All of those things get pushed out based on the zoom value. So you get a lot of buffs just for having one, extra zoom on the gun. Well, they're looking at decoupling those things so that zoom is only going to be how much your gun zooms in. It's not going to affect damage drop-off. It's not going to affect accuracy cones, aim assist, stability values. They want all of those things to be separate knobs that they can turn as they need to better balance these guns. Because right now the only answer they have is we got to take the zoom away, right? Tarrabah's too good. We got to dial back the zoom, and it affects the scope. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays a part, because right now, the Immortal, everyone's running rangefinder on it for that extra zoom and getting all those extra buffs that come along with it. So it'll be interesting if they decouple those things, how they can tune those knobs a little bit better and maybe bring those SMGs back down in line. But the long story short is that for the time being, we're about to suffer. If you don't like playing against the Immortal, then you're not going to have a good time for the next couple of months, because it's going to continue to get better and better and better. As more people get them, focus their engrams and trials to even just get the regular version, or next time it's up in the rotation, they get their adept version. More people are going to get them. More people are going to use them. More people are going to continue to die to it and feel like they have to sideline their build and pull their own Immortal out. So I think it's just going to get worse. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for tuning into the video. Hey, by the way, we've had over 1,000 new subscribers in the last few weeks. So if you are one of them, hey, thank you so much. It's been a nice quick boost to subscribership. So if you're new to the channel, thank you very much for your support. Thank you to those of you who consistently leave likes on the videos to help them get out there in the algorithm and get a little bit more love and exposure on YouTube. I appreciate those very, very much. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you in the Crucible. Bye-bye.